Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Post-Conference Presser for Anfield Index. It is Friday the 13th, that doesn't sound good, does it, of February, one day ahead of Liverpool coming back in the FA Cup fourth round. Brighton Anfield, 8 p.m, under the lights. You hope it will be a cracker. As ever with post-conference presser, we'll have a look at what Arne Slot was asked, the answers that he gave. A not great injury update, but expected. We'll talk about the clues we got from the last game, that Sunderland victory, which is a bit surprising for everyone, but a pleasant surprise. We'll talk about the threats Brighton will bring, how their season's getting on a little bit as well. It's a weird one. And of course, what we think the lineup, score and scorers will be. So let's get into it straight away, ladies and gents. The question and answers that Arne Slot gave. Now, let's get the negative out the way. We knew it was coming, but it still made you sort of a bit sad and winced, didn't it? Arne Slot's opening question from Vinny O'Connor, of course, he was asked, what about Endo? And said, yeah, we're waiting for scans and different bits, but we're pretty certain he will be out for quite a long time. I mean, not pretending to be a doctor, but speaking to a few journalists and, trying to dig a bit on that, I think there's full suspicion that it is ligament damage, even possibly a break as well. So you wouldn't be surprised if in the next few days it was just released that he's out for considerable time, very possibly the season. Again, not a doctor, obviously, what the scans and bits says. You hope for the best. And when I say hope for the best for Endo, I hope he's fit for the World Cup, because that will have been his aim all season. I mean, it's no secret, is it? Was it second starting appearance, I think, for Arne Slot? Someone had it since he's been here. He knew what this season would bring, Endo. He just had that leading Japan into the World Cup in mind. And I really mean that, I hope he still gets that opportunity. So we'll see if we get any further news on that in the near future. Of course, he was asked as well about some good questions here about his priority. The FA Cup, he's done the Champions League and all that. So what did Arne Slot answer on that? He said, we have three priorities: the FA Cup, the Champions League qualification and the Champions League. But we're also aware of limited options at the moment. Last thing we need now is more injuries. Have to speak with the medical staff over the best decision to make. So if you would listen to that bit or just read that bit in isolation, you're probably thinking, okay, hold on, there might be quite a bit of rotation, maybe looking at who we need to rest being the key factor, which of course will always come into the mix. But how much rotation, I suppose, would be the key thing to consider. Maybe this is a key line as well. Arne Slot said this about who will pick. I need another 24 hours to decide on the lineup. Load management is so important right now. We'll listen to how the players feel and then make the best possible decision. And he was also asked at this presser a couple of good sort of follow-up questions, but I think it was Juliana at the BBC around, youngsters, and they would be given a chance. And he talked about Train Ione and Rio being given minutes and other opportunities of players looking to make their first team starts. But he also said that it does come into his mind that Brighton are a Premier League team, so one of the stronger teams, as he put it, in the competition. Could be wrong on this, naturally, but I do think it'll be a pretty strong lineup for this one based on what he said. Probably, as he said, maybe another 24 hours to decide on it. I think it might be one or two that he's swithering on. Like, do I start them? Do I rest them? How can I make sure I'm getting the best out of certain people? But don't think you'll be seeing a youth lineup. Put it this way, I don't think the likes of Lewis Bauer, and shout out to him, that's not meant in any derogatory way at all, will be too ecstatic with it. We will see very shortly, though, won't we? He was also asked, and I like this, about the skipper and how he's done this season. Because did you see Virgil van Dijk the other day in his stats that Opta put out with headed clearances, goals, duels, and all that, breaking more Premier League records? And he was asked in this about the importance of the skipper, and he said, It's been vital. He has been fit every single time. I've said how big an accomplishment that is for a player of his age. Plays every 3 days, but not a coincidence when I see the work he puts in. It is a big accomplishment to be a Liverpool defender and being fit all the time recently, especially when you look at other issues that we've had during the season. And, Joe Gomez, Conor Bradley, you could go through all the defensive issues, and that right back position does seem cursed more than anything, doesn't it? But yeah, the determination that Virgil puts in, absolutely great. What I would say as well, worth a little read about the full comments and a few bits of detail there, is on the website. And then there's a few lines that I like as well. It tells you a lot about what he does off the pitch in recovery, but definitely also his mental strength that he's able to stay with the team. And not only stay with the team, but he also bring in very good performances and leading the team as he always does on and off the pitch. That is what he did on Wednesday night in Sunderland. Always fronts up, doesn't he, to be fair? Always the one in front of the cameras, even when it has been going terribly this season at the same time. And fascinating when you speak to people behind the scenes about Virgil van Dijk and people attached to the club, known to absolutely despise the gym, hates gym work and that type of, but prioritises recovery, is always focused on that. And his appearances and many other things are an absolute testament to how he's done this season. So it was nice to hear the skipper getting some flowers as well. There was a Hungarian journalist, not Ben Boxak, in the presser and was keen to talk about Milos Kerkez and Dominic Szoboszlai, because, of course, both of those were not in the lineup. One through suspension, one through choice against Sunderland. So we're talking about Dominic Szoboszlai. He said all the qualities he has, he's close to ridiculous. On the ball, off the ball, his work rate is another level. The intensity he presses with is incredible. We can all see the technique and the game insight that he has. And as he also mentioned about Dominic Szoboszlai, a player that, as he said, can play 6 in the double pivot, in the 8, right wing, central midfield, has to obviously have a number of qualities to do all that. And I like that phrasing, close to ridiculous. What could also be close to ridiculous is, it's not there yet, don't get me wrong, but if that contract was another one allowed to dwindle down and down, he will have 2 years left to go in the summer. Of course, Dominic Szoboszlai has talked about his contract situation, saying it's in the club's hands. And it's interesting because Sam Maguire had a piece out on Patron, didn't he, this morning, saying around, it might not be as clear-cut as many think, because Dominic Szoboszlai's got specific clubs in mind, specific amounts in mind for his contract. And many of you are probably saying, of course, he well and truly deserves it, doesn't he? The way he's played at the same time. However, there's a truth to this, and we forget. If everyone had been fit and playing to full maximum capacity at the start of the season, where would Dominic Szoboszlai be in this lineup? There's an interesting thing just to consider. Listen, just being completely subjective with what we're seeing now, player of the season for me. I think for many of us, that's no real surprise, is it? But do just wonder about that contract. We'll be getting close to ridiculous if it was allowed to dwindle for another year. So we'll see if we get anything on that. Other bits. Now, of course, I'm sure you've seen about this. I'm sure we're going to hear about this loads. We already have, but all the way through to the end of the season, the set piece situation. And he was asked about it. You can watch the clip if you watch the presser, as we always recommend to do. He went on about this in real detail. And he said, I'm regularly asked about the difference for us between Champions League and Premier League this season, and it's set pieces. We are top in the Champions League and bottom in the Premier League. Now, Michael Reid, shout out to him, put out a tweet not that long ago saying Liverpool actually have the best open play expected goal difference in the Premier League this season at just over 16.1, 0.62 per game. League leaders Arsenal at 15.2, 0.58 per game. It's nearly a difference of a whole one there. but then they have the second worst set piece and penalty goal difference. Liverpool have scored 9, but conceded 17. He followed that up with Arsenal have scored 12 more and conceded 11 fewer set piece and pen goals than Liverpool in the Premier League this season. That is a 23 goal swing in set pieces between us and Arsenal. 23 goals. Now, I know what done wrong. I know it's never this simple, but just imagine you loaded those on to Liverpool right now. Even if Liverpool were half, 12 more, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Liverpool have sucked at set pieces this season. They are on a good little run recently. Is that set piece bounce? Do you get a set piece bounce? Like a new manager bounce with Aaron Briggs going? I don't really know. But we'll see if they can keep it up. Because if they can maintain that all the way through till the end of the season, the current levels, it might well be the difference between Champions League or not, which is a real risk for the club at the moment. There was a little bit on Brighton as well that we'll get to, but it's worth just mentioning this because I think a few people were hoping was going to be a definitive timeline on Jeremy Frimpong. Didn't get that at all. No one asked that. We're hoping maybe, that the Forest game, that's being prioritised. That's still a week or so away. He'll be available for that. And people will also flag this one at the same time. As was tweeted from the main account, there wasn't a single question to Arne Slot regarding Curtis Jones's future and a lack of minutes. Because, of course, many have reported that Curtis Jones has started many of the games in a row recently, but hardly played any minutes in the last 5, I think it is now. And obviously the contract talks, the Inter Milan situation, blah, blah, blah. All those things that that go into the mix. What we're told, though, there was no questions publicly asked about Curtis Jones. Maybe just keep an eye on what might drop around 10:30 this evening. We'll see if anything's on that. So those were the real, I'd say, highlights from the press conference. It is FA Cup again, and I understand some of you. I'm a bit like, if we go out, we go out. Am I that fussed? Not massively, just the nature of the way this season's gone. But I understand some of you maybe going or think, no, it's the best chance for a trophy. I understand that at the same time. Arne Slot, I think, gave a little bit away of where it stands in his priority list. In terms of the last game, because we always look to that, Sunderland clues 1-0 on a terrible night, it looked like, in the northeast, didn't it, at the Stadium of Light. But a win is a win, as they say at this stage of the season. That's kind of all that really matters when we're chasing Champions League, and how important is that? We look back to the clues. What I would say is, if you just look at the surface level numbers, that won't tell you the full story, because you can say, yeah, look, our XG was 2.53. Theirs was only 0.63. So we probably deserved to win. I think we did deserve to win, but I don't think just look at XG for telling the story, because also look at 23 shots in total, but only 3 on target. How many of those chances were real quality chances? Not too many, if you're honest. I never like big chances, particularly as a metric, so I think it's better to talk about things. But Wirtz has that save early doors, doesn't he, from long range, which is a good save by the keeper. We are on top in the first half, without doubt, but it's not like we're peppering their goal. It's not like the keeper really makes many saves, in all honesty. There's a lot of blocks and bits in there. So actually, one of the clues I would take from this game was another example, being honest, of where Liverpool's attacking threat didn't really come into play too much. The attacking unit wasn't great. Yes, Florian Wirtz looked lively. The shot early doors, brilliant. The flick over the player to Salah, brilliant as well. That one where he gets it from Gakpo, shifts it from his right onto his left in the first half and then strikes the post. Brilliant technician, isn't he? Easily, head and shoulders, the best attacking player on the pitch. So that's one of the lessons as well. But as a unit, Salah, not great again. Made a few things happen. I will give him that. Cody Gakpo, I mean, that one where he breaks and just literally dribbles it about 10 yards ahead of him like an under 11. And I'm being super harsh on Gakpo, don't get me wrong there. But just another game where you thought, TK made a few good runs down the channel. I'd have to give him that. But header wide again. Let's see him put a header away in the near future. That would cheer me up. But yeah, an attacking unit, not there. Other clues, centre-backs, unbelievably good, weren't they? Konate, Van Dijk. I am sure you've seen all the stats around those two. Virgil's 4th goal of the season. And how well did Konate deal with robbery, especially? Really sort of marginalised him or helped take him as a threat largely out of the game. There was a few minutes where he just made a block or just got there where it could have gone either way, as Arne Slot alluded to today, but he did. That's the main thing. So much to be happy with around them. And I'm saying the defensive pairing rather than a unit when I talked about the attack, because seeing people say, oh, it was a great defensive performance. McAllister and Gravenberch, I'm not sure they offered great protection. They gave it away a lot. I thought the centre-halves were the real stars of the show, along with Wirtz being the 3rd best player there. And again, the other lesson, set piece, isn't it? You saw it. It's an ugly goal in an ugly game, in ugly conditions, and it comes off Van Dijk's shoulder. I know people talk about head, but it's a shoulder. And then the guy on the line gives a little helping hand, let's call it that. But if we keep getting these set pieces, if we're going to be this kind of coin flip style team at times, set pieces could just be the one where you flip heads more than tails. No pun intended with Van Dijk's goal. So yeah, quite a few lessons learned there, as it were. But we move on and we move into, as we say, an FA Cup game against a weird Brighton team right now. People want to say, what do you mean by a weird Brighton team? Well, Arne Slot talked about them in the presser, and he was quite keen to make sure he praised them, saying there are a lot of comparisons between Brighton and us. They absolutely don't deserve to be in the position they are in. They deserve so much more than they have. They're a weird one, Brighton, when you look at them. And, I mean, they were up there quite early on and, wondering where you're going to go again. But when you actually look at them now, they have dropped all the way down to 14th in the table. And under Hertzler, they've only won 7 out of 26. They have lost 9 games, scored 34, conceded 34. So a 0 goal difference. Look at that. You can look on the Premier League form chart and say they've not won in 5. But actually, the true story is they've not won in 13. And there are question marks around Brighton and Hertzler right now. And it's funny enough, Matt Law had this in the Telegraph. Doubt's been cast over Fabian Hertzler's future as Brighton and Hove Albion head coach amid fears the club's data-led approach is backfiring on them. Christ, maybe it's not just our fans that talk about data and the way it works and recruitment and all that. But interesting, isn't it? Which you'd think, well, these haven't won in 13. It seems not happy behind the scenes. They're coming to Anfield. But just hold on. This might be a bit of a pressure release valve for them coming to Anfield. This might also be a case where, I'm not saying there's nothing to lose, because obviously there's a next round of the FA Cup, but a bit of a distraction from the league. They do have players that like to play against us as well. Danny Welbeck likes a goal against us. Mitoma, historically as well, could give us, real issues. So let's not just write this off as in it's a good time or a good team to be playing either. Yeah. I don't know on this, because I could have just gone, well, they're not winning 13, easy. But the truth of the matter is, as Arne Slot alluded to, they have been unlucky when you look at their XG and how they perform against that, line at the same time. We will see, Which brings us to the last bit. What are we thinking the lineup, score and scorers will be for this one? Now, based on what Arne Slot is saying, I'm actually suspecting pretty strong lineup, I have to be honest. Maybe, and I don't say this lineup, I have to be honest, with any confidence, a few bits of rotation. Surely it makes sense if any game, Marmadashvili in. Surely you've got to give him this game at least. Give Alisson a little bit of a rest. And I love the holy goalie, but some of his kicking and recent things, I'm expecting Marmadashvili to come in. At the back, how many options can you go to? And this is where you start trying to pick it a little bit. I think, and I'm not saying some of this with confidence, I think Kirkes is going to be in because Robbo played the other night. So that rotation. And I'm scrolling down the list here and thinking, yeah, Kirkes, left back, Robbo back out. At right back, Christ. I do wonder, and again, I'm not saying this with confidence because people will be shouting, Calvin Ramsey, is he going to give him a chance? I think you're going to see Dominic Szoboszlai, and that doesn't make me or probably you happy, and I'd happily be wrong on this completely, but I think Szoboszlai will go right back. And in the middle, I think Van Dijk will play again. I think Ibu will start as well, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Joe Gomez coming on at right back or at centre back. I do think it'll be a pretty strong lineup, this one. In midfield, I get a suspicion it'll be interesting to see if there is any talk in the embargo about Curtis Jones. I suspect there will be. But Jones and Gravenberch as the double pivot. I do think Alexis McAllister will be on the bench. Again, I'm not saying this with any real confidence. I think Florian Wirtz will play. So what about the forward line? Again, Hugo Ekitike looks absolutely screwed beyond belief after 23 minutes. Oh, 23 minutes. That's even trying to read things there. After about 60, 70 minutes, sorry, doesn't he? Looks absolutely spent. I don't know. I just wonder if my prediction, Salah, Chiesa, Gakpo. That's what I think your forward line will be. I think I just get a suspicion he'll move Cody Gakpo more into the middle. It would not surprise me at all, though, if it was almost as what seems to be the best available option as he sees it right now. Ekitike, Salah right, Gakpo left. And of course, some of you will be screaming, what about Rio Ungamoa? And I get it. But just the way Arne Slot was talking in the presser, I'm not convinced. And it's genuinely, we're at this situation where things wouldn't surprise me too much. I would be a bit surprised, to be honest, I'm lying there. If I said Trey Ione started, that would shock me a little bit just based on what he said. But the bits of rotation that he can do, I don't think he'll use them all. It's this, as he said, 24 hours to sleep on it. Hard to predict this one. Although, see a few are putting it in the chat panel and have got different thoughts. We will see what 8 p.m. tomorrow brings, shan't we? So, score and scorers. I mean, for this one, it's the FA Cup. So, and obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, it still goes to full-time and penalties, doesn't it? We have to have a result. We will not have extra time, which thank God we won't at the moment. Maybe it's just this as well, but I get a feeling it's going to be a draw. Could be wrong on that, but yeah, a draw. 1-1. Florian Wirtz to be on the score sheet. Again, do I say that with confidence? Not particularly either, but that's my lineup. That's my score. Those are my scorers. As a few were saying in the chat panel, you can disagree. Yeah, FA Cup though. How bothered are you? I know I'm saying that almost frowning a little bit. I want to win every game as a Liverpool fan. Of course I do. But have we just got bigger fish to fry is still in the gut for me right now. In terms of other things to keep an eye out today, There will be transfer market metrics, and me and Bart's will be looking a few bits towards the summer, especially, and players that we've been linked with. Also, in terms of things that might be worth a read, look at this from Paul Joyce, an interesting article. Because when I saw a Paul Joyce article, I thought it'd be about the press conference, of course, and what had been said. As he tweeted here, not too long ago at Brighton, or was it Brighton at Anfield, was framed as a potential farewell appearance for Mohamed Salah. Since returning to Liverpool, there have been some differences in his displays. Now, it's well worth a read on this one, ladies and gents, because it does talk about how his stats and almost in the other numbers, that because people are looking at him saying he's not scored for ages, isn't that threat? The creative numbers are pretty high, by the way. That he is on 7 assists in all competition. You can easily forget that the other night was his in-swinging corner off Van Dijk's shoulder, but he's there, isn't he? That is the main thing to say. Yeah, well worth a read if you get 5 minutes on that. Probably the headline, though, if you did miss the top of the show or didn't see the presser, Wataru Endo. We got an injury update. As Arne Slot said, a foot injury. We still need to do some assessments, but it's clear and obvious that he will be out for quite some time. That Liverpool right-back position seems absolutely cursed, doesn't it? Is what it is a little bit. In terms of other things, as I say, we might get a Curtis Jones bit in the embargo. We'll see what drops later. Not sure we'll get any Jeremy Frimpong real update. We're expecting later on, aren't we? Probably for the Forest game. It is a huge little period coming up for the Reds. After this, we say, few games, Forest at home. Forest at home. Forest away the week after even, Burnley at home, Wolves away. And that will conclude February, which has been an interesting month, to say the least, so far. No one came through the door. There's been more injuries. Yeah. We will see what, quote unquote, the magic of the FA Cup brings for you. But Friday the 13th, maybe unlucky for some, that was another post-conference presser for Anfield Index.